This is a story from yesteryear, and it's a criminal case that stunned communities in Dorset and beyond. Men, including a bricklayer from Poole, a hospitality worker from Bournemouth, and a Spanish hairdresser, were jailed for a combined 92 years in prison for their roles in one of the largest cocaine smuggling pots ever uncovered in the United Kingdom. Once, these men were leading ordinary lives, working in construction, kitchens and salons. The men became entangled in a high-stakes international conspiracy that saw half a tonne of coke worth a staggering £41 million transported from Colombia to the UK via a privately chartered jet. Their descent from regular jobs into serious organised crime was described in court as both audacious and deeply calculated, a transformation marked by deception, luxury and a facade of high-flying business deals. So at the centre of this case was Martin James Neal, a 49-year-old bricklayer from Poole, known locally for his construction work, including ongoing building projects in the affluent Sandbanks area. Neal was thought to be an everyday tradesman with no public links to criminal activity. Yet behind the scenes, he was playing a pivotal role in coordinating an international drugs trafficking ring. Alongside him was Alessandro Lembo, a 28-year-old Italian national who lived in Bournemouth, holding down modest jobs, working in a kitchen at the Mary Shelley Wetherspoons pub and also the Bournemouth Pizza Company. He appeared to be another young worker trying to make a living. However, investigators discovered he was also in possession of a highly encrypted, self-wiping mobile phone, the kind typically used by those involved in high-level criminal operations. There was a Victor Franco Lorenzo, a 40-year-old. He was a Spanish national living in Bournemouth, also worked in the local hospitality industry. Like the others, his life seemed outwardly normal until he became a key suspect in the sprawling drug importation scheme. Then the fourth member of the convicted group was Jose Ramon Migueles Botas, a 56-year-old hairdresser from Valladolid in northern Spain. Unlike the others, Migueles Botas remained in his home country until shortly before the smuggling trip. He travelled to the UK and checked into the Premier Inn in Bournemouth in January 2022, shortly before joining the others on their fateful flight. So together, these four individuals presented an unlikely image of drug traffickers. None had known histories of involvement in organised crime, and yet all played pivotal roles in a plan that relied on meticulous planning, fake identities, and international travel. In order to smuggle such huge quantities of Class A drugs into the UK, the group crafted an elaborate backstory. They posed as legitimate businessmen involved in cryptocurrency ventures and the music industry. At one point, they even claimed to be travelling to Bogota in Colombia for a meeting with the American pop superstar sensation Bruno Mars. To pull off their scam, the group arranged the hire of a private jet through a UK-based charter company, Diamante Jets, paying an eye-watering £138,500 in cash for the flight. A female representative from the company not only facilitated the booking, but also made a highly specific request that a particular background handling company, Central Charter, be responsible for managing the flight upon arrival in Colombia, a detail which would later draw suspicion from investigators. The men's journey began on January the 25th when they travelled to London from Bournemouth and checked into the Chelsea Harbour Hotel, a luxury establishment in one of the capital's wealthiest districts. The next day, they were chauffeured in high-end vehicles and taken along with 12 large suitcases to Luton Signature Airport, where their private jet awaited. The group departed for Bogota on January the 26th, and within 3 days, they would return carrying nearly half a tonne of some of the purest coke ever intercepted by UK authorities. In Colombia, the conspiracy scale became clear. Criminal networks operating in Bogota went to extraordinary lengths to ensure the drugs were loaded onto the plane without raising any suspicion. Armoured vehicles were used to transport the cocaine to the airport, and to complete the illusion of security, a bogus police officer, accompanied by a fake sniffer dog, carried out a staged inspection of the luggage before it was loaded onto the aircraft. Unbeknown to the smugglers, however, UK intelligence agencies, including the NCA and Border Force, were already closing in. When the jet landed at Farnborough Airport on January the 29th, it was immediately flagged for inspection. For all their polished deception and high-flying bravado, the return to the UK was when reality came crashing down for this gang. It was the moment the fantasy they'd so carefully constructed shattered, and the brutal truth of their operation was exposed under the harsh lights of justice. The group's private jet descended from the clouds and touched down on the runway at Farnborough Airport, a hub more accustomed to corporate executives, government ministers, and international dignitaries. As the wheels hit the tarmac, the men relaxed, certain they'd pulled it off. There was no grand fanfare, no visible threat, just the quiet hum of a successful arrival. But the eyes of the government were already upon them. Unbeknown to the group, their every movement had triggered silent alarms, patterns that did not sit right with trained border agents. Their travel itinerary, their cash payments, the dubious excuse of meeting Bruno Mars in a known drug trafficking region, all had raised red flags. Behind the scenes, the National Crime Agency and Border Force had been coordinating a silent operation, waiting to strike, and that came the moment they touched down. As the plane door opened, Border Force agents boarded the aircraft under the guise of routine inspection. What followed was anything but routine. The men cooperated at first, or pretended to, still playing the part of innocent businessmen. They smiled, answered questions, and presented their paperwork. But as their 12 suitcases were unloaded, a second team of officers began to inspect the cargo, and the illusion began to unravel. One by one, the cases were opened, and one by one, the truth emerged. Inside were 513 tightly wrapped blocks, neatly packed, meticulously arranged, and unmistakably illegal. The packages contained cocaine of startling purity, 79%, with an estimated street value of around £41 million. Enough to feed the UK's market for months, enough to destroy lives, enough to spark headlines. Their phones were seized, every device, every encrypted app. One, belonging to Alessandro Lembo, was a red flag on its own right, an encrypted self-wiping phone designed to erase itself at the touch of a button. This wasn't the kind of device a kitchen assistant from Bournemouth would casually own. It was a phone built for criminal secrecy. But the story didn't end there in the UK. As the arrests were made, a parallel investigation erupted in Colombia. Authorities there, tipped off by their British counterparts, launched raids in Bogota, where they uncovered armoured vehicles used to move the drugs, a fake police officer, and a fraudulent sniffer dog, and a criminal infrastructure built with terrifying precision. 5 more individuals arrested, accomplices in the supply chain who had orchestrated the shipment's loading with military efficiency. As the men sat in their holding cells, the designer clothes gone, fake credentials, and the thin smiles, the full weight of the British justice system began to bear down on them. Gone were the whispers of jet-set lifestyles and cryptocurrency meetings. The National Crime Agency began to unravel the threads of the operation with surgical precision. Mobile phones became the skeleton keys to the operation. Text messages revealed planning months in the making, code words, vague promises, and hushed logistics exposed how far back the plot reached and how involved each man truly was. The charade of innocence crumbled further with every passing hour. In court, they were found guilty. On the sentencing day, the courtrooms packed, reporters poised, and the judge's words were thunderous in their finality. Said, "You have brought shame upon yourselves. You knew exactly what you were doing, posing as businessmen, faking trips, chartering private jets, all in pursuit of profit. This was the betrayal of lives you pretended to lead, and a crime that feeds suffering across this country." So the sentences they got were as follows. Martin James Neal, Alessandro Lembo and Victor Franco Lorenzo were each sentenced to 24 years in prison, and Jose Ramon Migueles Bottas, deemed slightly less culpable due to his limited logistical involvement, received 20 years. The National Crime Agency, they hailed the operation as a significant blow to organised crime. Investigations revealed that the group had likely succeeded in a previous smuggling attempt, and authorities in Colombia, as we know, conducted a parallel investigation, and the case underscored the vulnerabilities in the UK border security, particularly at smaller airports like Farnborough, and highlighted the lengths to which criminal networks would go to exploit these weaknesses.